You say that's 20 seconds, Ms. Beverly? Okay. We're going to call to order our first hearing for the evening. That's the 7:15 hearing of Patrick Henderson. Are you Mr. Henderson? Good. Welcome to the Board of Appeals. Why don't you come on up here and let me deal with some formalities, and then we'll be delighted to hear from you. Mr. Henderson's application is dated June 27th, 2019, and he's seeking a variance from the terms of Section 5A1 of the zoning bylaw. The applicant is proposing to build a 10-foot by 11-foot 6-inch addition to his residence with a gable-style roof over a portion of the residence at 99 Maple Street, which is presently a 2.5-story home. The bylaw indicates that if the first floor is more than 4 feet above grade on homes that are built in 1950 or later, then the basement's considered a story, and there's a very confusing calculation that's done under the bylaw. But when that is done, it indicates that the addition would technically create a full third story on the house when normally 2.5 stories are allowed in Milton. So the applicant is seeking a variance from the bylaw. The property's in a residential zoning district. My name is John Leonard. I'm chairman of the Board of Appeals. With me this evening to my immediate left is board member Virginia Donahue King, and to my immediate right is board member Jeffrey Mullen. Rules of the board, we're going to hear from the applicant. We'll hear from anybody else who wants to ask questions of the applicant, wishes to speak in support of your application, in opposition to the application. We're tape recording the proceedings as always. It is being televised, but on tape delay. The tape recordings are official record of the hearing. That would ask that before anyone speaks, speak up nice and loud and clear. Tell us your name and address before you speak, so we can establish by listening to the tape as to who is speaking at any particular point in time. So we'll have as evidence at the hearing tonight the application, which is dated 6/26/2019. I think it's 6. I think it is 6. But as usual, we have the denial letter at 6/20. It's before the date of the application, but that's always a mysterious thing that happens in almost all instances in Milton. We have some structural calculations. It looks like it's by Robert A. Is it Quay? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought the stamp is very light. It may be Olay, O-L-A-Y, or whatever. But in any event, they're in 6 pages, and they're very complex and convinced me why I never majored in math. We like our math on a 4th grade level here and not on, this looks like it's on an MIT level, but it's really well and thoughtfully done. We have an inspection plan by Boston Survey. It's dated, its effective date is 6/9/2014, so it's an older plan. And we have a series of design documents from Rockwood Design, Inc. They're located in Marshfield, Massachusetts. They're probably in 10 or 15 pages, showing the location of the property and the residence from every known view to man. So they're very thorough and complete, and so we thank the Rockwood folks for their rather comprehensive set of plans. We also received from the applicant some assents to this particular application. They all indicate that the proposed the improvements to the residence are very well done. They would be an enhancement to the neighborhood, even though they technically violate the technical strictures of the bylaw. So I'm not going to read the multiple assents. They all say essentially the same thing. So one is by John H. Leslie of 98 Maple Street in Milton, Tamara Lang of 108 Maple Street in Milton, Ellen McMahon of 103 Maple Street in Milton, And I have to tell you, 236 Elliott Street,
Yeah, they just signed it. They didn't write their name, so yeah.
I don't know, maybe, it looks like F, R, maybe a Z. But whomever it is, we thank them for submitting their letter. We have a letter from Dale A. Horseman, dated July 23rd, 2019, from Joanna and Tyler Gualteri of 244 Elliott Street, and from Jeff Phillips of 94 Maple Street. So we thank all of the applicants for submitting those materials. Mr. Henderson, welcome to the Board of Appeals.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't you tell us about your application and why the board should give this, award this variance to you?
Yeah, so my wife and I bought the house last April. We moved out of the city to Milton to eventually raise a family.
From Boston?
From Boston. Yeah, we were in Southie for 7 years and then Dorchester for a year, and then crept on down to Milton.
Where did you live in Southie?
We lived on Dorchester Street and West 4th Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. That's wonderful. Well,
John, you're going to tell me what to Cathedral High School?
Where'd you?
you didn't go to Cathedral High School.
Play football?
I'm from Rhode
Tell me
Island
to play
originally.
football?
I did, yes. No, my dad dragged me out of the Boston school system and took me to the Sisters of St. Joseph at Cathedral High School, and they taught me a few good lessons. So you bought the house, when did you say?
Last April.
Last April.
April
okay.
6th.
Well, welcome to
You
Milton.
didn't ask me where I lived in Dorchester.
Did you grow up
You
in
didn't ask
Dorchester?
him.
No, I didn't.
I didn't grow up there.
Okay, then I deem
I lived there.
I
Right
deem
by
your
Lambert's
questions
Market in
irrelevant.
Dorchester.
Okay. So tell us about the home as it exists presently and the
Yeah.
improvements you want to make and why that's in the best interests of you, your wife. Did you say kids?
So we have a baby due in February now.
Oh, how nice.
Yeah. So that's
Congratulations, that's wonderful.
why we need some more storage coming up. The house.
You may need 2 closets.
I know,
so-
right? We're gonna be back here in a few months. We need a 4th floor. So currently in our bedroom's on the 3rd floor or the 2.5 floor, I guess it's considered. But there's a crawl space. Our bedroom's about 10 by 10 or whatever the dimensions are on that 10 by 11. Our bedroom is about that size.
It's a micro bedroom. It's
Yeah.
very, it's
And then it has a crawl space that's the same amount of space. So we're like, why don't we pop that roof up and double the size of our bedroom, make a big closet for all my wife's clothes and whatnot, and
that's
all the
all right.
extra space we'll need.
About 3 months ago, we had a young lady came in here with her husband, and they were doing a renovated bathroom, and he was doing a she closet as part of it. And we gave her the relief, and she was ecstatic. You would think it was a television
Is
show.
that the official title, is She
really-
Closet?
Yeah, it was an internal closet right off the bath, and it was private. You could close it off, and she could have her things displayed, and I
Yeah.
hope it came out well. So why don't you continue, Mr.
Yeah,
Anderson?
so that's basically what we want to do. Our room now has like a small closet in it, and so a lot of our stuff's in the downstairs closets. So we want to move them up for, as we build out the family, and they'll need the closet space down there. We want to utilize that crawl space, which right now is just for like boxes and whatnot. And yeah.
Okay, and let me just ask you a couple of technical questions.
You got it.
I assume that when you, if you get your variance and you complete the renovations are going to be consistent with the existing dwelling,
Exactly.
and going to be an improvement to your house and to your neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
and all your neighbors here love it, and other people have told you how wonderful your application is, even though they didn't sign this. Is that fair to say?
Fair
Okay.
to say.
Let me see if my colleagues have any questions. Mr. Mullen, please.
Has this building been renovated before?
Yeah, so when we bought it, the person bought it before us and done a bunch of renovations, the kitchen and just kind of updating everything. The house hadn't been updated, it seemed like, since like maybe the 50s or 60s. So she updated it, and we bought it from her. So
Has the exterior design been modified?
I believe the exterior design's the same. She changed like the siding. She took off vinyl siding and kept the original, the wood that was there before. So that's what's currently there and what we would put on the new section as well.
So I think the front elevation is going to look a little bit unusual, but on the other hand, Maple Street is full of a lot of different homes.
Yeah,
You
we have a
really can't
big
think
variety.
of many streets in Milton with that kind of variety of home. You're right there on the left as you're heading down towards Lowell
toward-
Mills, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Did you talk to your neighbors?
Yep. So I spoke with all the neighbors that were directly around me, and none of them had any issues.
And what about the people on Elliott Street?
So I spoke with 2 of the 3 people that are directly behind me. The one directly behind me, I didn't get a chance to speak to. I went to 2 or 3 times, and they weren't home either any of the time.
So you're having a balcony installed as well?
Mm-hmm.
And how's that balcony going to work?
So right now, that space is, I guess, the roof of over our bathroom on the 2nd floor. So it would be on that space.
Only
right there.
accessible from the bedroom, though.
Yes, accessible from the bedroom.
So you're basically, all this work is really being done to enlarge your master bedroom and to build that balcony. That's pretty much the project, right?
That's the whole thing, yeah.
And as a result of gaining that space, you're really modifying the exterior of the premises, which is raising the roof, which is why you need the relief. That's the
Correct.
story.
That's the story.
I don't have any further questions right now, John.
Mrs. Kane?
I have some questions about if we know what percentage of the second floor, the third floor covers, what at the 4 foot, so not in the crawl spaces below 4 feet, but what the percent is of the floor below it. I am concerned that it's a pretty massive looking house. It truly does look like a third floor, which it's kind of a tight neighborhood to do that in, so I am concerned about that. How much of a percentage it would be over the bylaw for making that third floor, which is the half story, become a full story.
Mm-hmm.
So, do we have any measurements on that?
Do you understand the question?
I believe I understand the question.
How much, I think essentially, it's how much smaller is, if it is
is
the
the third floor? So it's
How much
smaller.
smaller
The
than
only
the second floor?
Yeah, it's the 2nd floor minus the crawl space, so that number in there, and then also the eave on the side. I guess it would be if you're facing the house, the left side. There's probably like a couple feet in there that aren't utilized.
Because I need to, is this the
Yes.
bylaw? Continue, and I'll look something up that I didn't have a chance to
Okay.
before.
Let me just confirm a couple of things if I can, Mr. Henderson. This is a 5,000 square foot lot, right? And it's only 56 feet wide, and it's 55 feet to the rear. So it's a rectangular lot. Most of the houses in your area, approximately on lots 5,000 square feet.
Yeah, about. There's a couple bigger ones, but most of them are around that size. A few smaller.
Okay.
Like you said, there's a lot of variety of houses on our street. There's a couple multifamilies. There's different eras, kind of a hodgepodge.
Do you know when this property was built?
Is somewhere around the turn of the century.
Okay. Do you know whether there are any properties that are proximate to your house that have secured relief similar to the relief that you're requesting here?
So my neighbor directly next door, Dale, who signed on that thing, he has 3 floors. And his is a 2-family. He rents out the 2nd and 3rd floor, and he actually just moved out of the 1st floor. And then there's some others that have third floors as well. I don't know the percentages and like what they're exactly.
And you don't know how they got the third floors? Whether they just preceded zoning or whether they got variances or other relief?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, the half-story becomes a full story when it has more than, well, 67% of the square footage of the floor below, if, from counting at 4 feet tall. So, so it's not just like an 8-foot ceiling or anything. It would be anything that's 4 feet or above that would be counted as going to the third story.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that we can calculate this very quickly here, and I
Well,
think,
it does this, I'm sorry, there's the second, there's the third.
so,
Yeah, and I mean, in our crawl space now, there, like, a bunch of it's above 4 feet. Like, I could, when I walk in there, you can stand up to, you know, if you're shorter than me, you could.
I do have a little problem with that, I have to say. Particularly where some of this area, which I kind of assumed would not be included, but just the living area here would be included. So, if it was something close to 67, I'd be more inclined to be happy with it, but I'm not as we stand right now. I have other things that you might want to add on that, and
Let me take a look at these two plans. Okay. Mr. Mullen, do you have any further questions? Okay, I don't have any further questions. Do you, Ginny, you have any follow-up questions?
yeah, I'd like to know how close we are on it.
Do you understand what Mrs. King is asking?
The percentage that's covered.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I certainly couldn't perform that calculation, but it appears from the documents that Ginny showed me, they're somewhere in this application.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it-
I don't think you have enough data to do
Our-
it, even if we did the math right now, just because you gotta know
You don't know what the
what's 4
slope part
foot.
is, yeah.
You gotta know the 4 foot
We don't know
answer.
what's under the slope.
Because maybe on the third floor, there's more space than we really know.
So our contractor came down here to answer some questions about that at one point before the denial letter. And he had some calculations that he brought.
Well, I think they're the ones attached to the,
Yeah, possibly.
Is that, yeah.
I think so.
are you doing calculations, Mr. Mullen, to help
I'm
us?
just making notes so I don't forget again.
I mean, I personally am not able to
No.
decipher these things.
I think they have-
I think those are structural
Yeah,
calculations.
they have more to do with the
not
rafters
geometry.
rather than what the measurements are of the
Well,
walls.
wouldn't Mr. Prondak have done some
If
calculation?
somebody had brought it to his attention, I don't think it's obvious from the drawings, though. So, you know, a quick look at the drawings, I don't think,
Would-
would lead you to write the denial letter that way. I don't know, you know? Well, whereas you can get the height off the drawings fairly easily. That's all. That's why I looked at the letter. I think it's a fair question for the inspector if that's what Ginny wants.
I think that we should have a reason for why we would be giving the relief or not giving the relief. And, the best way of doing that is to have that calculation and to see how reasonable it is, within the 67%. If it's 70%, I'm not going to get excited about it, but if it's 80, maybe I will.
Okay, well,
I mean, I understand that, this, now, the neighbor to your, as you're looking at your house, the neighbor to your right, who's
That's
that?
Dale. He signed one of the letters. He's the one.
he's the one-
He
he
was
has
the
the
one who'd
three-
be
he has the
directly
three-story.
facing it correctly.
And
Yeah.
his name is
Dale
Dale?
Horsman.
Okay. Oh, I see, over
Hold on
here.
one second, Jenny, I have that. He's at 95 Maple.
Yep. He's directly next door.
95.
He's on the right? Did you say?
Face my house is to the right. Correct.
Okay, who's on the
He's-
left?
On the left is Ellen
Ellen
McMahon.
McMahon, or Man.
Okay,
She's
and-
been in the neighborhood for like 40 years.
okay. And do you know who's directly across the street? Is there anybody
Yep, that's
there?
Mr. Leslie. He's also been there a long time. He signed one of those as well.
You know who's behind your house?
So that's the person who wasn't
You
available.
couldn't get to.
Yeah.
Those are the people who look at the balcony, though.
Yes.
And, the back of the house being, let's see, I don't look at the.
On Elliott Street.
yeah.
So the other two people that are behind us on Elliott Street also signed the letters.
I'll just look at the, I wanted to look at the back view again, since we're talking about Elliott Street neighbors. Here it is. I don't know, I personally would like to know a little bit more what that
Okay,
calculation would be.
That's your call.
Can I call our contractor? Because I know he came to talk about that
If
calculation.
he has that, that would be good.
Why don't we do this? We had a matter scheduled for 7:30, so why don't we take a recess here for 10 minutes or so?
Okay.
And you can make your call and see if you have any luck. And you know the question that Mrs. King is asking.
Yep.
Okay, and see if that information is available. If it isn't, we can always continue your hearing to give you plenty of time to get that or bring your contractor
When would
in.
it be pushed to?
I don't know, it's probably September, but why don't
Yeah.
you make the call first, okay? And we may be able to resolve it.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
basically, it's asking for what the square
Yeah, I
footage
understand.
at the wall being 4 feet or higher compared to the square footage on the second floor. So then we can figure out what the percentages are,
Okay.
okay?
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to recess this Mr. Henderson's hearing for about 10 minutes. Mr. Henderson, you can certainly go out there and make your call and don't run away, okay? So, okay, you all set, Marion? Okay, we're going to call to order our 7:30 hearing, and this is the application of Elizabeth and Christopher Stokel, thank you, of 34 Forest Street. This application is dated April 1st, 2000. It has to be 19, but it couldn't be 18. It'd be
It was 2019.
yeah, it's just a squiggly 9. And we had a hearing on this matter on June 5, 2019. It was kind of a preliminary hearing, and Mrs. McGetrick, let me just do. My name is John Leonard. I'm chairman of the Board of Appeals. With us tonight again is Virginia Donahue King to my immediate left, Jeffrey Mullen to my immediate right. This particular application was before us on June 5th. And Mrs. McGettrick outlined the presentation, and there were some changes that people were thinking of, the applicant was thinking of. And so since that time, Mrs. McGettrick has been working hard on this case. And why don't you just tell us, Marion, where you are, just for the sake of TV land and...
Well, we needed the additional time because when we came into the June 5th hearing, the applicant said that they had decided, close to the time of the hearing, after reviewing all their plans and the costs and everything else, that they were going to take a large sort of barn, caretaker's apartment, workshop structure out of their plans. And that's important in this particular application because this is a site that has a high water table, so the buildings have to be built up so that they don't interfere with the water table and they're not in it. And and when you do that, you like to bring in additional fill to sort of smooth out the lot and also make the foundation of the buildings look better. So every time you change something in a plan like this, you have to change calculations. And in this case, the applicants had done a full stormwater drainage plan and had certain facilities that were proposed for their plan, but they were based on that original number of buildings and locations. So we asked for a lot of extra time, and they did indeed get their plans redrawn, and they have eliminated that garage barn structure, and they've changed the orientation of the house. But then just less than a week ago, the engineer said, but the amount of fill, because we changed the orientation of the house, the amount of fill that we have to bring in is now greater. And so I said, you can't continue with this application because you've only asked for a certain amount of fill. So that's why we're here tonight, just to ask you if you will give us permission to withdraw without prejudice so that we can then refile the application with the proper amount of maximum fill. The plans are complete. They have been or are about to be distributed to neighbors. Again, Mr. Joe Henning, who's here tonight, his engineer is getting a copy of all the plans because his engineer had reviewed the drainage calculations and the stormwater plan, and he'll be getting the new plans to review. So, if you were able to meet in a week, I'd say we could meet, but I know you probably can't do that. So whenever you can schedule it. I'm assuming that you would like to have the same board here at this time around. We do plan to bring the engineer for the applicant with us.
Great.
We've had quite a bit of discussion about how to make this application a little bit clearer in terms of what it is we need permission to do, why it is, that we've developed these stormwater plans and so forth, what the site is like, what the obligation of the applicants is to protect neighbors from additional flow coming off their site. And this will give us an opportunity, I hope, to give you a clear presentation when we come back and to give you a letter ahead of time that might explain some of that. It will also give the chairman a chance to address the question of doing an independent peer review. If you'd like to do that of the engineering, there'll be enough time to find someone to do that. So I'd be very happy if the board would be willing to allow us to withdraw at this time, but without prejudice, so we can refile soon.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that was very, very helpful. Mr. Joe Henning, do you want to be heard on this application? Okay.
I'm really happy with the way the Stokes have treated us.
Okay, great. And I understand that your engineer may be meeting with Mr. Joe Henning's engineer. And
The Merrill engineering firm, Deborah, I can't remember her last name, but she's the engineer. She's been sending her reports directly to the engineer that has done work for Mr. Joe Henning and Mr. Rowe. And I think they communicate outside the hearing, and there were some changes that were requested and were incorporated. But because they've changed the plan again, that's going to go back for another review. That's something that was requested by a neighbor, and the Stokes were pleased to do it because they want to make sure that they have a good plan for the drainage control. They are right above Thayer Nursery. As we all know, Thayer Nursery has had to put in a drainage system for their special permit application, and it's really important that it not be negatively impacted by development up above. And just for your information, I represented Thayer Nursery for some of that, and that both parties, Stokels and Thayer, have given me permission to represent the Stokels, full disclosure to the board. So far, it's been fine. If there's a problem, different counsel could be obtained, I'm sure, but there hasn't been.
So,
But everybody has been given copies of these plans. Most of the neighbors who were at the last meeting left email addresses, and we sent the original set of plans to them, and then these follow-up plans are going to go out to them. So we hope that if there are questions, we'll have a chance to discuss them ahead of time, but if not, we'll be doing it at the next hearing.
Okay, that sounds great, and maybe, depending on various people's viewpoints and the like, maybe peer review won't be necessary if everyone's in agreement on the application. We're not-
Whatever you decide is fine. I mean, we're happy, the applicants will do what you want them to. I think we just need enough time to determine how to do that if we're going to do it. It was a little bit rushed, well, as these things always are, because their plans weren't ready until towards the end of this period.
Mr. Mullen, do you have any questions?
I have 3 questions.
Yes.
What was the origin of the peer review to begin with? I know that this was a challenging site, and that at the last meeting, there was testimony of some abutters who knew a lot of the history of the site. Is that where the peer review came from? Because as I recall, Attorney Dunn's letter merely asked for an opportunity to review the plans independently by their own engineer, which is what you've done.
And they also asked the applicants to pay for that review, which they did.
Yeah, okay. So I'm
Yeah,
just
so
wondering.
that's happened. We regarded that as a peer review, but it's not a peer review that the Board of Appeals requested, and it's not an engineer that the Board of Appeals engaged. So I think
Was
you'd
the
have to discuss it with the chairman as to, but I know it was talked about as a possibility at the last hearing, and we thought that possibly the existing review was sufficient, but, you know, that's the board's
It
decision.
was the complexity of the site that was really driving these concerns.
That's right, and neighbors indicating that there were serious issues.
I remember that, yeah, okay. All right.
And there was some question as to some of the neighbors really didn't feel comfortable or financially comfortable going out and hiring
Hiring their own.
their own engineers.
Okay. All right, so I was,
That's question number one.
that
What's
was only question number 1. I have
number
3
two?
questions.
Yes. What is number 2,
Question number
if you
2
remember?
is, the modifications that are being made to the premises now that are going to result in the new application, do we have an indication of whether they're going to exacerbate the drainage situation or make it better or neutral?
The new drainage, a full set of drainage calculations has been completed, and it's slightly better. But both sets of drainage calculations show less flow off the site after the project than now.
Okay,
Less flow. The standard is that you can't increase.
right. A third
Now,
question.
The full set of calculations should have been sent to Mr. Leonard. I should be
I
sending
think
them to
Ginny's studied them. I think Ginny's gone through them in detail, according to these.
Well,
Mrs.
you know,
King said there were 100
these
pages.
reports are
100
long.
pages, I went through with a
Go to the
fine tooth
end.
comb.
I saw.
Go to the end of the report, you'll see the summary of the impact. It's a table. and
Mrs.
that's
King will
what you
have a
need.
full report at the next hearing.
Okay, that's good. Question number 3, Mr.
Well,
Mullen?
I am hoping that you'll go through it for me as,
We've asked the engineer to explain it very
yes,
carefully.
yes. Jeff?
Third question is, at the hearing, will you be prepared, or will the engineer be prepared to testify and to let us know that there's nothing, notwithstanding what Thayer Nursery is saying with respect to their own property, that there's nothing on this design that's impacting what we've required Thayer Nursery to do?
I think we can get
really
a
feel like
statement about that, and the reason is that the first thing that happened with their engineer is that the engineer requested a full set of the drainage plan for Thayer Nursery to review, so that they could understand what Thayer had had to install and what the purpose was, and they got copies of all the drainage calculations and everything else. So they have that, they've used that to do their work, and I'll just make a note that you would like some kind of statement about, there's a concern that this will have an impact on the property directly below, which is Thayer Nursery, which is at a lower grade, and that this will somehow, you want to know that this is not going to create any further problem or make worse the drainage that Thayer Nursery is addressing.
Concern is too strong. I don't have a concern. I mean, I don't have any basis for a concern. But I will ask that question at the hearing, and it will be helpful to make that part of the presentation, because of all the work that's gone on up there, we want to make sure that there's nothing happening that will exacerbate that requirement.
Okay, so we'll make sure that's part of the presentation.
That's the end of my 3 questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. King, you have 3 questions if you want.
I have 4.
Four,
No, no,
right.
no.
Thank you, Mary.
No, I don't have any questions at this time.
I don't have any questions, I guess, except for, yes, ma'am. What do you got?
September, middle of September, end of September.
How are you, Marion, with something like that?
I'm going to be around.
Well, just-
I mean,
well, we're
until I
happy
know
you're
the
going to be
date, I don't
around.
know.
It's-
Well, yeah.
I'm not going on vacation or anything.
You guys, that's, so, yeah. I can't do it until, well, I have something the 13th. I think anything else is probably too soon.
Well, we don't need any time. Because well, I shouldn't say that. We like a little time, but we don't need much time because now the plans are complete. Now we know what the amount of fill is required is. I just have to file a new application. But in terms of our time, we'd be ready to meet pretty much in a week or more, anytime after a week from today. But I don't know if you can do that.
Well, we have to advertise.
What's
No,
good?
I'm sorry, you need
Gonna
at
have to
least
be in
2 weeks and
September.
then,
Okay, what's good for you in early
it's got to be at
What
least
was
3
What were
weeks.
those dates?
I just have to be in September, that's all.
It has to be.
it does.
And I really,
We're going to be here on the 11th.
we are,
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
well, we're not going to add to that night.
I could do the 12th.
Day of the week we're looking at?
Yeah, we got a traffic hearing coming up here, I don't know when that is. 18th is fine.
18th?
That's fine,
Yeah.
I think.
How are you on the 18th? Ginny?
Let me just look at the month at a time so I can count my, yeah, that's fine.
So 18th?
18th? 7:30?
Yeah, just need to check, I'm sorry,
Don't be sorry.
no, is it?
Yeah, which
there's
room
a
are we in?
Traffic hearing coming up.
Oops.
Is it?
You know when that is?
No. Denny.
You think it's that week?
Yeah, if for some reason I do, and that's a concern, I'm sorry, I just have, too many emails. Mike. We go with that, yeah. We'll make it
Well,
work.
look at it, we'll pick, let's go with the 18th, but if
Yeah.
you have a traffic meeting, we'll bump the date.
Okay, thank
But
you.
we'll bump it a day or two,
Yeah.
Okay.
one way or the other. Is that all right with you, Mrs. McGettrick?
Of course, yes.
And this will be the only matter we're going to have on, Mrs. Sutton? That's true? Okay. So unless there are objections out there, and I hear none, we're going to continue this hearing to Wednesday, September 18th, 7:30. And if there's going to be any change in that date, we'll know of that within the next day or two. Okay?
Okay, good.
Great. Thanks, Mrs.
Thank you very
McGettrick.
much.
Sorry to keep you
See
so
you, Mary.
late.
Did we
Thank
vote?
you. Oh, no, we didn't vote. We have to do a vote. Thank you. So all those in favor of, you get me agitated here. All those in favor of allowing the applicants to withdraw this application without prejudice to filing a new application, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Marion.
And I want to file right away. So I guess I would just ask that you file, it's only a one-sentence decision, that I have to file something,
We do.
so it shouldn't take long. but-
No, no,
Want me to
no.
write it?
No, what I'm thinking of is Okay, because then we can start the advertising process. Mr. Mullen will know whether he's available on the 18th.
Exactly,
and-
after a couple of days,
That
whatever.
sounds
I'm
fine.
just asking that it not be too long, because I can't start that process. And
You
nothing
can,
is
okay, you can do the dismissal without prejudice, right? We have those in other cases.
It's a form.
Do that and I'll sign it tomorrow.
Alrighty, thank you very much.
Thanks. Mr. Henderson?
Hello.
Hey, he's good.
So I didn't get in touch with him, but I think I figured out the map. We can look at the plan.
Oh, yes, we will. It's, I think the sheets are there.
So, according to the plan, this whole area is 1711 plus 12.1, right? Mm-hmm. So that is 1711 plus 12.1 is 30 feet, if I'm doing the math correct. And the master bedroom is 1310, and the closet would be 10.6. So that is 2316, so 24.4. So if you subtract 30, right, 30 minus 24.4, if you're writing down the numbers, that equals this slope. So the slope is that, which I think is that about 6 feet?
A little less,
A
5
little
feet.
5 feet times 23 feet is this slope.
And
And that is however many square feet, and then just do that.
100
amount of square-
115 square
So the
feet.
total proposed is 463, so it would be 100 and, sorry.
115.
115 out of 463 would be below 4 feet,
would be below 4 feet.
because
Wait a
this
minute,
is
wait.
all.
So, just, let's do a calculation. So the part that's above 4 feet is, what were those numbers?
So it's
Hold
the
on.
total length. So it's the total length is 1711 plus 12.1. So that's 30,
Which is,
the length of the whole house.
okay, to this point here.
Yeah, from there to there. Because this part would be used, and the slope is unused. So the slope is the size of the master bedroom plus the master closet minus that number is the number for the slope. And the slope is 23 feet long, so it would just be the total space minus the used space would figure out this number, and then that number times the length
Do we,
is the square footage.
what are you counting as the total number, though? I'm not.
So the total
so that
number
we-
is this,
We've really,
1711 plus 12.1, because that is that whole length, right? So that's this whole size of it.
hold on one second. Just wanted to look, okay, so,
Hello, how are you? Good, nice to.
Sorry, I'm late. I had to go to
no,
physical
the-
therapy for my
Oh,
knee.
oh, good grief. Well, here, sit down there, please, relax. We're doing a mathematical calculation.
Yeah, no worries.
Trying to figure out-
He was updating
so,
me on my phone. I guess I'm curious, when it comes to the code, is it a safety concern? Is that percentage due to, would it be a fire safety concern? What is the code, what is that code representing from a safety perspective?
I don't know that safety is involved in it, it's just what we,
I think
what
it's
they
a
came
density
up
issue.
with. Yeah,
It's
I
a-
think
A
that's.
density issue,
yeah.
Of the house?
the bylaw doesn't want the big block, three-family houses.
Oh,
And so they make the third story lesser, according to this formula, so it lends some
which makes a lot of sense.
cachet
because
to
we
the
have-
house.
I mean, absolutely, and we wouldn't want to ever dissect the house to be a rental for any reason. Quite frankly, our bedroom right now doesn't have enough room for a bassinet, and I'm pregnant. So that's really what's driving a lot of this right now. So I'm glad it's not a a safety
No, no,
concern,
no,
because
no,
if that
no,
was the
no.
case, I would definitely want to make sure we were revisiting a lot of what we're doing.
So, Okay, we're not counting this part, right? Because
Nope.
that's all.
Yeah, so just this is
that-
30 feet, is the length of this. And this, so the length of the usable space, the new usable space would be 10.6 plus 13.10, which is 24.4.
Yep,
The slope, which is under 4 feet, is 23 feet wide. So if you do the 30 feet minus the 24.4, so that's 5.8.
and
5.6,
what's the status of this area
So
here?
this, like, this part is all not on the floor. That's like a roof. I'll show you.
Yeah, no, I got it,
Yeah.
I went by. So we've calculated,
Yes.
This
that,
amount.
Like this slope right here is this.
right,
And then this slope is this little thing.
yeah, yeah. But so we've counted this part here with
Yep.
these two calculations?
Yep.
So,
This is the 24.4, and the 30 is the total length. So this slope is this part that's under 4 feet. That's like here, it's like behind our bed. And that is the slope. So the slope would be the difference of this. So 30 minus 24.4 is 5.8, or, right, inches, or
Wait a minute.
5.6.
I
my,
was doing something different, I'm sorry.
so we have,
I thought you would make it as 115.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
over
So
four-
that's-
over
I'm just
463.
working the math backwards to shoot.
That's,
I think
That's
you're adding
24%.
143 square feet to the third floor.
you're adding 143 square
That's
feet,
what the drawings show.
okay.
Yeah, so the calculation I was figuring out was what the slope is, because that's the under 4 feet, and you wanted the percentage that was over 4 feet. So if you get that 115 number,
no, what was the,
So what we're looking at basically is what
Current third
this
floor has
is.
320 square feet.
okay, so it's,
Proposed third floor has 463 feet.
okay,
The
so it's,
difference is 143.
okay. So,
Second floor has 756 square feet.
The second floor has 756? Okay,
Third floor has 463 when you finish. And right now, it's got 320. So you add in 143 to the third. You follow?
I think so,
Yeah.
but doesn't that mean you're adding 44% essentially?
I didn't do that.
yeah, so that's what I was showing was the percentage. So if you take the 115,
Yep.
that's the unused space on the new third floor. The unused space would be 115 square feet out of 463. So 115
Well,
over
that's a
463.
lesser figure than, I was doing a different one.
Yeah, so I
So
think that's like 70%.
If it's 115 divided by 463,
I don't know where
24.
415 come from.
It's the
115
unused.
is the slope.
But we don't count that.
well, we count
That's the
part
under
of it.
4 feet, right? That's what you're trying to
count-
figure out is what percentage is under 4
We
feet.
count what's over 4 feet.
Right.
So we're not sure, is this section here, is that sloped at all now, and will it be sloped later?
Is
Or-
what section?
So the current master bedroom?
This
No.
is our current master bedroom right now.
Yeah.
There is a
that's-
slope right here.
Yeah, that's the slope.
That's the slope.
Okay,
There's a slope above our bed.
so we're adding this as well?
We're not doing anything to that.
No.
Oh, okay.
When we're putting these numbers
I
together.
think you just gotta use what the drawings show, that's all I'm saying.
No,
I do
I'm
too.
still in
Yeah.
here. Can I put you on speakerphone? Okay, yeah, so you're trying to figure out the percentage used with the new proposal.
okay, we're going to do this. We're going to take a 5-minute break, okay? So you can have your phone call.
Oh, okay, can you help us understand what you're looking for,
Yes,
though?
we know what we're looking for, but I understand that. So we're going to suspend the hearing for 5 minutes, so your husband can talk to the
Sure,
contractor.
is he under the right impression? Are we looking for the right thing?
What we're looking
Yes.
for is what the square footage of the proposed third floor is,
Livable space versus.
but livable space being defined as 4 feet from the floor and up. So anything that's 4 feet from the floor and up is counted as livable space, right?
And you need a percentage, or do you need a square footage amount?
We need probably both. We need to know the square footages of not this part, but the rest of this here, what that is, and then we can compare it to the usable part on the proposed,
Okay.
okay?
Okay, so we're going to adjourn for 4 minutes now, and we'll come back
The
into
drawings
session.
have the square footage on them. At the bottom. I think we have to rely on those.
Oh, okay, okay,
As
gotcha.
opposed to what the contract is
I think
saying
so.
on the telephone call. Yeah, I
Existing
agree.
If you want to modify the plans, that's fine, but then you got to modify the plans. So the current third floor is
463, okay.
320,
So-
463, it's
So it's
adding
actually within.
143.
It's actually within.
Yeah,
It's within, it's fine, okay.
I think that's the answer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't, you know, the slope and the floor, whatever. You've got to assume that a square footage is
I mean,
square.
I don't know if this,
Well, what he's probably done is he's done a uniform formula through the whole home though, right? So at least you can rely on that.
you can rely on the 756, yes. And I'm not sure exactly how they've defined the area. If it's including the, down to 4 feet
You
or
can
not.
assume it's so. And if the building commissioner determines that it's not, then there'll be an issue, you know? I think it's fair to assume it's so.
I do too.
Yeah. Let me just see the bylaw. Is this your copy, Beth?
No, it's John.
He has made the comment about compliance with the bylaws regarding the definition of story and the concern about the two-third calculation. So I'd like to suggest that the board rely on the square footage that is actually on the drawings.
Yep.
And those calculations are as follows. So the existing second floor is 56 square feet. The existing third floor is 320 square feet, and the proposed third floor is 463 square feet. So they're adding to the third floor 143 square feet, according to those calculations. Now, I didn't do the calculation on how that complies with A1, the point that you made, but
It does.
I think it's reasonable for the board to rely on that's consistent with our practice, instead of remeasuring.
Yeah.
Just because I
Makes
don't know how
sense.
big the half walls are. Okay, so that's my proposal, for
Okay,
the board's consideration.
Mrs. King, what do you think?
I think that's reasonable, even if it were to be slightly more, not knowing if that's covering the slopes that are at 4 feet and, that sort of thing. But it still appears that there's a little room for fudging around a little bit. And it appears that it can, in fact, it's very close. It's very close, even if you were to add some more square footage in there. So I think it's a good idea.
Okay, so you're comfortable with that
yeah.
calculation? and-
Yep.
Okay, that's fine. Let me do this. We're back in session again, so I have to ask a couple of magic questions to see, is there anyone out in the audience who has any questions? And there's nobody there saying any questions. And does anybody else want to speak in favor of this application? And there's no such person present. And does anyone want to speak in opposition? So there's no opposition to this application. So unless you have something further to add, and you don't, and Mrs. Henderson doesn't either, that's considered wise when you're ahead. So what we're going to do is we're going to end this, the evidence portion of the hearing. We're going to discuss this matter in open session, and we'll do that here and now. Mr. Jeffrey Mullen.
Thank you. I know Maple Street pretty well, and it really isn't, you know, for a town with a lot of uniform homes, variety throughout the town, but a lot of uniform homes in the neighborhoods. Maple is about as varied as you really can get, I think, you know. A lot of older homes, and sometimes there's probably some infill there where there was a side yard and the homes got built over time, so. And then as you go down to Central Ave, homes may be a little bit older. This home is old, it's a very handsome home, and I'm sure that it's gonna look fine. I think the elevations are a little unusual. You know, we wouldn't see that front elevation with a roof line that way. You know, that roof line is gonna look a little bit awkward, right? Because it's not symmetrical, right? We're not generally designers, but I don't see a lot. Usually with an improvement like this, it'll be hidden in the back. And the design isn't such that you can do that. So this is gonna alter the appearance of this house quite a bit. However, there's a lot of unusual homes on this street. So where the Board of Appeals, and the thing that I usually look at is whether or not it's out of character with the style of the home that's on the street. And I don't know that there's any one dominant home other than, you know, a lot of varied home styles, which is what makes it a pretty nice neighborhood, you know, for some. So that's a long way of saying, despite my reservations about how it might look when it's ending, I do think it conforms to the general characteristics of the neighborhood. I like to see people improving their homes. This will be an improvement to the home. So I'm inclined, and I appreciate Ginny's comments, and that was a worthwhile exercise, and we all understand it better now, but I would vote to support it.
Mrs. King.
And after going through some of these calculations and so forth, I can see that it's not grossly above. In fact, it might be just a little bit below the 2/3. So I am in favor of the application.
Okay, well, look at my view of this is that you have to start out with, this is a very small house and a very small lot. Maybe it's a micro house, so I wouldn't say that. A 10-foot by 10-foot.
Not a micro house.
10-foot by 10-foot bedroom with a little youngster on the way, and having to use the downstairs closet is really, that's tough living. I think that the variance being granted here has the sense of all the neighbors who are interested in this. It's certainly, I understand Mr. Mullen, who's very good at not only mathematics but architecture, saying that, well, perhaps this may be a little bit unusual. It is, but the whole neighborhood is unusual, and there's not a lot to work with here. And you're kind of stuck with what you have. And I think the application with these Rockwood Design folks, I mean, for the small improvement that you're making in the house, this is really a lot of work, and they put a lot of time into this. And I think if they think this is the best way to do it, I'm not going to substitute my judgment for theirs. And I think this would have a relatively insignificant effect on the neighborhood. I think it'd be an improvement to your house, that's for sure. And I also think that Milton, as we all know, is a somewhat older town with sometimes older people.
I agree with that.
And we really, we should be encouraging young families to be building in Milton and renovating in Milton and staying in Milton for the benefit of the community, and not chasing them off to Canton or Dedham or some other place when this is where they want to live and they want to educate their youngster in our wonderful school system. So with all of that, it's a long-winded way of saying I intend to vote for this variance. So all those in favor of granting the variance as applied for, say aye.
Aye.
So a couple of things. Number one, we've got to write a decision, okay? And that may take us a couple of weeks. Number 2, the decision's got to be recorded in the registry of deeds, okay? Number 3, because Mr. Mullen likes to count in threes this evening, there's a 20-day appeal period, even though nobody's opposed your application. You can't pull a building permit. Sometimes Mr. Brundak will allow certain superficial work to be done, certain prep work to be done, and all of that. That's his bailiwick, not ours. So if you or your contractor, at your own expense and at your own risk, wanted to do some initial prep work,
We'll wait till.
that's up to you. Other than that, we're going to put in the decision. We're going to adopt these plans in the decision and say that the addition is going to be built in substantial conformity with these plans, okay? So if, for whatever reason, when you start to get involved in an older house and you start taking it apart a little, sometimes you find things that ain't supposed to be there. Or you find things that aren't there that are supposed to be there. But if you have any difficulties along those lines, please go to Mr. Prondak and talk with him and make sure he's comfortable with what's going on, because he enforces our decisions. And if there's technical issues, then you can come back and see us. But hopefully, this is your first and last time coming back to see us. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so
on
much.
you.
And I appreciate your thoughts on the aesthetic and the older home, and we want to make sure we're matching that aesthetic, and we would
Great.
never do anything to make it look outlandish. I value the look of the older homes and trying to match that, so I don't want you to I understand your concerns and thoughts, and I had similar thoughts when looking at the pictures, and definitely make sure we'll do everything in our power to keep it in line.
You know, when are you going to do
Good
this?
luck.
When are you going to do this work, do you know?
Probably once the appeal period's done.
So you're gonna jump right into it, 'cause
done before she gets.
you don't want to get into December or January.
Yeah, I don't want
and,
that going on in, the winter, hopefully.
Well, that's right. Congratulations on 2 counts. Thanks for
Thank
coming.
you. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. I really value you going through that with us. Really appreciate it again.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thanks, Bev.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And with that, I hear a motion to adjourn from Mr. Mullen and a second by Jenny.
Second, yeah.
It is allowed. We are in adjournment.